Hey, what up, y'all? Welcome to my very first episode on being black in Germany. Today I want to talk about growing up in Germany, what that was like, and I'm going to start with kindergarten, move on to elementary school, and then we're going to touch on high school. So in kindergarten, I don't really have too many bad memories, to be quite honest, but I remember that there were like a lot of times when all the kids would play with crayons, right? But I was the only one who had to clean it up, which is super odd. And I really don't remember it being like normal that all the kids would play and just one kid would clean up. So I do think that my kindergarten teachers, were they racist? Probably. But I think that that's just a small and subtle example. And as a kid, you don't get it. It's not where you go home and you tell your parents, oh, I had to clean up all the crayons by myself, And I guess one can argue that, it wasn't like that or anything, but I do think that preconception played a role in that, and that, I was just a little black girl, so it was okay for me to do other people's cleanup work. It is what it is. In elementary school, I really don't have bad memories of elementary school. I really liked my teachers. I think I had good teachers, but it was definitely different for my brothers. They were like treated not fairly. They weren't treated fairly all the time as they should have been. And they were definitely faced with a lot of judgment. And I think that they had it harder because they're male, and black men are oftentimes perceived as being threatening or dangerous even when they're just boys. So I really, really think that had something to do with it. I really think that because of my gender, I wasn't faced with as many, prejudices. I've never known how to actually say that word. But anyway, so yeah, that was elementary school. And in high school, now before I touch on high school, I have to explain how the German school system works for a quick second. It's not going to take long. So basically you have, after elementary school, you have the option of going to 4 types of different high schools, depending on how smart your teachers think you are or your grades, really. Because your elementary school teachers, they also give out recommendations. The lowest level high school that you can attend is Hauptschule, main school, which after elementary school, you do another 5 years of school, another 5 years. And then you graduate after 9th grade. And then that's basically it. And that's mandatory in Germany. It's mandatory to do 9 years of school. And then after that, you have Realschule and Gesamtschule, which would translate to real school and whole school, which is so weird. But basically, after these 2 schools, you do either 10, you graduate either after 10th grade or 12th grade. And then most people that graduate from those schools, they either go to trade school or they get an associate's degree, something like that, right? And then you have the Gymnasium. Gymnasium is like the highest level of high school education that you can get. And when I went to Gymnasium, we did 9 years, an additional 9 years to elementary school, which meant 13 years of school as a whole, right? So most people graduated around the age of 19. And like when my brothers were in elementary school, their teachers recommended that they should go to a lower level type of high school. And they didn't. They went to gymnasiums just like I did, and we all graduated. And it's a fact. It's a real fact, because I've talked about this with other people, that elementary school teachers tend to recommend lower level schools for kids of color. Like, that's a real thing. And, it's not just something that I just made up, but it's true. And I think it also speaks to how they perceive children of color, that they think that, okay, even if they don't have straight A's or whatever, they'll never make it, you know, they're not destined to become great. They're not destined to go to college or anything like that. What I failed to mention is when you go to the gymnasium, it's way easier to get into college, to get into university, you know. Okay, so I went to gymnasium, and I think I'm going to separate this into teachers and classmates, or interactions with teachers and interactions with classmates. Like, I had some good teachers and I had some really messed up teachers. I remember in 6th grade, I had this history teacher, and I loved history as a kid. I still love history, actually. I'm a history buff, right? So history class was never something that I dreaded or that I felt like, oh, you know, I don't want to do this or whatever. Like, I loved history. And at the time, we were doing like Egypt and the Romans and all that stuff. But for some odd reason, I had the very worst grade in history, which was weird because I actually put effort into this. I really wanted to be good at it, you know, and show everybody that, you know, this is my forte, so to speak. And I remember that the only other person who had terrible grades with this man was another girl in my class who also happened to be a person of color, and she was Afghan, actually, really sweet girl. We're still in touch, and we used to talk about this, and nobody would believe us. No one would believe us that this dude was giving us grades on the, you know, based on the way that we looked, not on the way that we were actually participating in class. So I remember we had parent-teacher conference day, if that's what you call it, parent-teacher day, and, you know, parents would come talk to the teacher, and I always used to go with my mom. And I remember, like, I used to tell her how horrible this man was, and when we came there and we sat down, he was so polite to her. He was so nice. And I'm just like, what type of game is this? Like, you know, when you're a kid, you don't really get it. You don't really know what to say, and it's strange. And you're like, why is he being so nice? But, you know, that was definitely one thing that has always remained with me. And moving on from that, though, the other teachers were more subtle in their racism. Like, there were so many times with other teachers throughout the entire time that I was at the gymnasium where it felt like I had to work so much harder to get a grade that another person didn't have to work as hard for. And I said what I said. I will die on this hill. Like, if anybody comes to me after this video and they want to tell me, like, any former classmates, any former teachers, and they want to tell me that this didn't happen, I will eviscerate you. Just putting it out there. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, that was definitely a very real thing, like racist teachers. And again, it was worse for my brothers. And I really, really think it's because they're men, you know. Next, I want to touch on classmates. What it was like going to school with predominantly white kids, you know. I have to say, though, that, like, where I grew up was so much different from where I went to school. Like, where I grew up was a little hood-ish, I would say. Like, I wouldn't call it the hood because we don't have hoods in Germany. We don't have ghettos. Why? Because nobody's getting shot over a pair of Jordans. Like, let's keep it a buck. You know, I know that rap music, you know, German rappers, they like to talk about the ghetto and this and that and the third, but baby, you're not gonna get shot. If you walk outside your house, you're not gonna get shot over what you're wearing or your jewelry or whatever. Like, come on now. But anyway, wait, where was I? So, like, where I was living, like, there were a lot of foreigners living there, like, you know, Africans, Asians, people from all corners of the world just mixed together. And at school, it was only translucent people, you know. So one or a couple of things that I definitely remember were, like, we were outside, we were on break, and I can't remember the context of the conversation, but I remember this boy telling me, "You're not beautiful, you're black." And I was like a teenager and I was like stunned. Like, I was like, what? And then another time I remember like the boys in my class, they were like making fun of another boy, and I didn't know why. And I was like, oh, why you guys, you know, what's up? Why you guys laughing? And they were like, oh, so-and-so has a girlfriend and she's black. Like that was the reason why they made fun of this boy, because he had a black girlfriend. That's how, I feel like there are some people out there who've had it worse, and I'm going to touch on that too. But to me, that was like, wow, you know what I mean? And the craziest part of all of this is that I had parents who encouraged me all the time. I still do, you know. Like I remember one time my dad, you know, I was upset about being teased about, I think, my lips or something. And he was like, look at the TV, you know, these white women, they're trying to look like you know, they're injecting their lips and they're, you know, they go tanning so that they can get their skin like you. So it wasn't like I wasn't being encouraged. It wasn't like I didn't understand that there was somebody out there who thought I was beautiful, but like, why weren't these other people seeing it? You know, and it's you're in this weird space when you're a teenager, because you're trying to figure everything out, yourself, the world, and you know, your body's going through all types of changes, and it was just really tough not feeling beautiful due to outside opinions. And the funniest part of all of this is, if I were to tell these people today, they would tell me they don't remember this. 100%. Why? Because these are the same people who are outraged at American racism, but don't really understand that they're part of the problem with their microaggressions. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Like, do y'all? Does that make sense? Y'all, like, right? And I think it's very, very interesting. All in all, to close this off, the question: would I recommend raising your children in Germany? Will I raise my children in Germany? If it can be helped, no. Why? I'm not ungrateful that my parents came into this country. I'm actually very, very grateful. They worked very, very hard to provide for us and, you know, for us to get to where we are right now. But if I have the choice, I would not do it, because I wouldn't want to expose my child to a constant feeling of feeling different, really, you know, to them feeling like they don't belong. And I want them to, you know, be raised amongst people that look like them, you know, where somebody might not like them because of something that they said, not because of the way that they look. It is what it is. And to be quite honest, I think that someone like a black woman or a black man who grew up in East Germany or somewhere in the south outside of Munich or Stuttgart, they probably had it worse. They probably had it way worse, because, you know, those rural areas, so to speak, or, yeah, you know, where they have a lot of villages and stuff like that, there are even less foreigners, less black people that you can interact with or talk to, or, you know, where you can just cry your heart out. So yeah, those were just my experiences. I would definitely like to know if, you know, if you've been raised in Germany, how you grew up, if you made similar experiences, if you say that nothing like that ever happened to you. I would like to know where you grew up. If that's the case, are you thinking about, you know, moving your family here? If so, did this video help you in any type of way? Just let me know your thoughts. I would definitely like to hear them. And if you like this video, make sure that you leave a like and a comment. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And I will